Welcome to Boxing Predictions, the home of the big fight prediction videos. So today we're talking about March the 3rd, 2018, and it's what I'm calling the biggest fight night of the year so far. We've got some good fights all over the world, some really quite interesting fights that are big in their own right, and they could lead to other fights. So we're just going to go through, we're going to discuss the schedule, discuss my thoughts, make some predictions, and take it from there. So we're going to go through the schedule. This, as I say, this is March the 3rd. If you've got any comments in any of these fights, remember to jump down to the comment section below, and also hit the subscribe button because we've got legitimate individual videos for all of the bigger fights, so check those videos out. So as I say, we're going through the schedule, and the first fight that kind of comes to my attention is Avni Yildirim, super middleweight contender, 17-1. He's fighting Derek Edwards. This is in Germany, and it's for the WBC International super middleweight title. Now, he is someone that lost to Chris Eubank Jr. So whilst he's just outside of the whole super middleweight picture, he has the potential to go back, and also the fact is he's young, he's 26. He was on a good run until he got to the Chris Eubank fight. It's possibly one of these fights that as Yildirim progresses with his own career, it becomes an even better victory for Chris Eubank Jr. Okay, so obviously you'd expect him to be the American Derek Edwards. Decent guy. He has a number of victories, a number of defeats, but these have been up against high level opposition. He's become the gatekeeper, but he has got a victory over Badu Jack, some other decent guys, but he has lost, and he's been put in with higher level opposition. So it's a good fight for you to see kind of whether he can get back into the picture. Wouldn't surprise me if he can. Okay, so what else have we got moving around? See if anything catches my eye before we get to the big ones, because we know the big ones in the UK and the US. So what have we got? Well, we're moving down to the UK, and there was one fighter, I think, one in the UK. We've got Josh Taylor in Glasgow. He's fighting against Winston Campos. He's someone that's kind of starting to build a decent resume, super lightweight. It wouldn't surprise me if they kind of push him more rapidly against better opposition. In the last year or so, he's had some pretty decent performances. Hara Davis, Vasquez, they were his couple of his fights in the second half of 2017. It's put him on a good path, that could lead towards much higher rankings and getting those title shots. He's against Winston Campos, and I wouldn't expect him to, whilst he's an okay opponent, I think we'll see Josh Taylor go through fairly comprehensively there, in my opinion. So there was one other fight, I'm pretty sure, there was someone that caught my eye when I just briefly flicked through this earlier. Maybe it was in the USA before we get to the USA. So, obviously in the UK, we've got a big card out in Sheffield. An interesting card, actually, to be perfectly honest. We've got Kell Brook in his debut at the super welterweight level, having fought predominantly at welterweight, jumping up for middleweight, and then jumping back down to welterweight, suffering 2 stoppages in the process. He's looking to rebuild his career. He's gone up to super welterweight. He's going against Lomachenko. Now, there is a full video on the channel about this where we discuss what we think is going to happen, so on and so forth, and you can check that out. But you expect Kell Brook to come through this relatively unscathed if he's still the man that he was prior to those two pretty devastating stoppages. Now on the undercard, there's a fun undercard here. Now there's an undercard that's good entertainment here, and it starts with Gamal Yafai against Gavin McDonald. I mean, two very, very good fighters. They're on the outskirts. They're kind of looking to get into those big fights. But this is a good fight. I mean, Yafai undefeated at the moment. McDonald, he's had a defeat, but they're both. I mean, I think this is going to be close. I think this is going to be a pick'em. I think this could be a pick'em. I mean, I think I'm going to edge towards Yafai just on this one. Then the next one, an interesting fight: Lenroy Thomas versus Dave Allen for the Commonwealth heavyweight title. Again, I've got a full video that I put on the channel. I think I just put it on the channel last night or night before. Can't really remember, but I mean, I had fun, talking about that fight because Dave Allen, big fan favourite. A lot of people have got a lot of time for Dave Allen. He is a bit raw, whereas Lenroy Thomas is a lot more silky, a lot more high skilled. So they blend together, and they made an interesting fight the first time. Eddie Hearn talking that it's his last opportunity for Dave Allen, so he's gonna put it all on the line, blood, guts, and thunder. And I think that's got the opportunity to be fight of the night on that card, to be honest. And then on the rest of the undercard, there's some interesting names here. Some interesting names that I think they're deserving of kind of. I mean, they've been put on this card, but they're decent guys. You've got Kid Galahad, 23-0. I mean, in the featherweight division, he really needs to kind of move on. I mean, he's obviously. I talk a lot about fighters sometimes getting up to the world level far too quickly, not building that experience. Kid Galahad, he's been a pro for a long time now, a lot of fights under his belt. It's probably about that time we need to start stepping up, stepping out of the shadows, And he's fighting against Irving Berry, you'd expect him to win that. Also on the card, you've got two guys again who they're on the periphery. They're kind of just looking in, At the moment I'm looking at the schedule, neither of them have an opponent. Firstly, I'm talking Rocky Fielding. Now, Rocky Fielding on this card, he's only got one defeat against Callum Smith. I like Rocky Fielding. I don't know why he's on a card. He's all the way down here, and he doesn't have an opponent 2 days before the fight night on the schedule. I mean, for me, that's ridiculous. Same with Sam Edgington. He was on a great run until he lost end of last year, which was a real shame for him because he'd really built some momentum up with some really good wins. It'd be good to see him back into it. Maybe this is just an easy fight. They're going to throw him in with someone just to ring rust and whatever. But it's interesting to see what he can do. So let's move on to the USA. What we've got. One thing that, when looking through these cards, I see Antonio Tarver Jr. Now, I don't know anything really about him. He hasn't really been shown in the UK. I haven't really watched anything of him. 4-0 at the moment. We know he's old man. It'd be interesting to see how he progresses in the middleweight division. If anyone knows anything about him and they've watched any of his fights, is he an actual prospect or is he just living off the name? Jump down to the comment section below and let me know. Then we move on to the big card of the evening, taking place in New York, and it is in Brooklyn at the Barclays Center. We've got Deontay Wilder versus Luis Ortiz for the WBC World Heavyweight title. Now on the channel, I've got two videos about this fight where I spoke on my prediction. Then I've put a follow-up video where we will actually discuss your guys' comments. The hundreds of comments that I received, we go through and we discuss it. We have a bit of fun with the comment sections and the predictions that I received for that, But this is going to be the biggest fight of the night. The most important fight of the night. Now on the undercard, again, there's a pretty decent undercard. There's some good names. I mean, we've got the rematch of Andre Dirrell versus Jose Katigu. Jose Katigu. I can't remember how you pronounce it. But anyway, it's IBF World Super Middleweight title. I mean, this was an interesting one because in the first fight, disqualification occurred. Katigu got disqualified for punching after the bell. I mean, I thought this was harsh. I actually thought this was harsh. Now, it was two left hooks that came in that effectively knocked out Darrell. The first one came just on the bell, and then the second one came in after the bell. And it wasn't like it was the bell came and then he swung and knocked him. It was a double hook in kind of almost a fluid motion. I thought it was harsh. And the fact that, you know, it looked to me like Andre Darrell quit wouldn't surprise me. I mean, you can't really say much about that, because the fact of the matter was he'd effectively been knocked out. So it was one of those ones where he'd been knocked out. There was a technicality. He could have got up and continued, but you know, if that had occurred 10 seconds before, it's a legitimate knockout. Okay, so it's an interesting thing. I mean, for me, I would expect Uzcategui to win the rematch. That's what I think. I think he's going to beat Andre Darrell in the rematch for that interim strap. Also on the undercard, what have we got? We've got Willie Monroe Jr., you know, someone in the middleweight division who's had two big opportunities in the past, come up short. You know, I think he's still a player in the division. Whether he can get a shot, probably not. But, you know, we need these guys that are just on the periphery to make things interesting. You know, he goes up against Carlos Galvin. Also on the undercard, we've got the continued rebuilding job of Charles Martin at the heavyweight. You know, the guy that, you know, he won that heavyweight strap by a technicality against I can't remember what the guy's name is now. Smaller fella, but he got him through an injury, and then he basically challenged Anthony Joshua, and he just gave him he packaged up the belt and presented it to Anthony Joshua in the ring. I mean, it was a bit of a disappointing performance. Then there's been some issues with Charles Martin, but you know, he's coming back. He's had two, you know, basic fights since. This is obviously going to be the third. They're obviously trying to rebuild his confidence, rebuild him as a prospect. I quite like Charles Martin. I think there is potential there, you know, if he can get his head straight. Okay. So what else have we got in the USA? We have actually got another card with some big fights. This is also taking place in New York, and this is at Madison Square Gardens. Okay, so it's all kicking off in New York on the 3rd. Okay, and you know, this is the HBO show, and you've got two world title fights in the light heavyweight division. We've got Sergey Kovalev versus Igor Mikhailin. And we've got Dmitry Bivol. Okay, so they're both. I mean, these two guys. I mean, Kovalev and Bivol are expected to win these fights, in my opinion. I predict them to win. You know, I mean, it looks like they're building this card towards Kovalev, Bivol to unify those straps, which I think is a shame. I mean, everyone wants to see your man Kovalev go up and fight the other champion in the division, but it just doesn't seem like Adonis Stevenson wants it. I know he's got this fight against Badu Jack, but I mean, he's been such a disappointment, Adonis Stevenson. You know, he moved up the division, he got the strap, he had a couple of really great defenses, and then he just slept on it. He slept on the belt. I mean, he's kept that belt full. Terrible opposition for the last 5 years. Badu Jack's his first live opponent for a long time. I mean, he's in his 40s. I mean, I think it's highly unlikely that we're going to see him against Kovalev. I would have liked to see. I'm sure a lot of people would have liked to have seen that fight. I just don't think we're going to see it. I think there's not much left in the tank for your man Adonis. I mean, we'll talk about Adonis Stevenson versus Badu Jack in a couple of weeks on the channel. But, you know, that's it. So, as I say, you've got those two light heavyweight title fights in Madison Square Gardens. I'd expect Kovalev and Bivol to both be victorious in that, leading to unification battle in the summer. So that's it. So that's the March the 3rd fight night. As I say, there's a lot of big fights happening in around the world. Some interesting fights that could lead to other fights, and you know, some people that are just, you know, they're getting back in, they're getting that ring rust off before they move on to the bigger fights. Okay, so Yeah, so as I say, check out the channel so you can see the more comprehensive predictions for the bigger fights and some of the not so bigger fights. Now, jump down to the description below. Obviously, hit the comment section, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next video.